Today's color is red. It's a root chakra color, and it's all about togetherness. It's all about being as one, as a community. If you are in a position where you feel that there's so many things coming at you, you're just trying to take you down. There's this fear that, well, what if I fail? What if this doesn't work? And Spirit says it's impossible that it's not going to work, only because we are just like anything on this planet that leaves. In other words, if you take a flower or a certain plant out, when it grows back, we start to see that because of the shallow roots that that plant had before, it has now deeper roots. It comes back. We are perennials, believe it or not. We come back stronger than before. Yes, they could take us down for a short time. But when we get that, what we call second wind, when that whole thing drives forward, and this is this red energy, fire energy, red, and it's all about the earth. It's all about bringing in that life, and we're going to bring in life back to what was no life before, or very little life. And this is where we come back even stronger. So that's the whole theme of today, is to how to come back stronger than we ever did before. You know, when I look at the when this came up over the last couple of days, ancient ways, I was always thinking of my parents and grandparents, and I never knew my great grandparents, but certainly when I was talked to and had association with my grandmother and grandfather, it was quite a thing, because they would give us all kinds of hints and tips and cooking, different ways that they did cooking. And storytelling was a big one. They would talk about what they did in the 20s, or before the First World War, sort of thing. And it was really intriguing to find out what their path was in coming to a country. In my case, I was in Europe, or they were in Europe, and they set up in various places, and it was really rough. There was days they said they'd never ate, but they found a way, and they went through it, and eventually they started to build a home, build a family, and were very successful. But there were a lot of times, they said, that we didn't know what we would do in the next day, but they always found a way. One of the things that I remember my father and my grandfather saying is that if you touch something with your fingers, just you do it with your fingers, and you burn yourself, okay? If you put it on your earlobe, it immediately cools off, because your earlobe is the coldest part of your body. And I never knew that at the time. They told me that as a kid, and sometimes I'd put my finger in a fire, and just the tips of my finger would go, whoa, and then I put it on my earlobe, and it says, oh my God, does it ever work? And it's now amazing, because all these ancient ways, I am giving that to my grandson. And so it's all about that. And the indigenous knew this. It was all about passing on the knowledge, the custom, the traditions, and everything that's in your culture over to the younger generation. And then these ancient ways are slowly being lost. And we're going to dive into this a little bit to find out a little bit of why this has happened and what can we do about it. But 200 years ago, this, of course, is very applicable for Canada and the U.S., as it was a young country, vast pieces of land. It's not like in Japan, or it's other areas of Europe where, yeah, the land was pretty good, but it wasn't unlimited as it was in Canada. I mean, you could pretty much put Europe in one province in this area. We have a big piece of land, and so when that was young, all that we wanted at the time was progress, just to get the country moving, get the country growing. So they put in railways, both north and south, telegraph, and all the other inventions, telephone, and every other piece of of inventions that we would need to give us a higher standard of living. And the whole idea was to make an advanced society, an industrial society. We went through that in the 20s with the Industrial Revolution and in the industrial time, where it was all factories and we were just making things. And all of it had something to do with us to grow to a certain point. But if you look at the ancient ways, I mean, over the last pretty much 100, maybe 125 years, okay, if you go back that far to the 1900s, the there wasn't a lot of inventions at the time. So if you look at the history of humans, it's been 10,000 plus years. If you go back to, and there was always the native or indigenous ways that made the humans, our race at the time, and plants and animals to coexist with each other. That's why it lasted 10,000 years. And it's interesting that just in 125 years, we're already seeing signs that, oh, this is depleting, that's depleting. We're not sure if we're going to last another 50 years or 20, 30 years, whatever. And that's only because we're at a point where we're not respecting, not us in personally, but as a race. Because there's so many more people that are just doing whatever they're doing and not having any regard for the planet or sustainability at all. I mean, for us, sustainability is a big word, especially now. You know, when we look at eco-friendly things and we're looking at non-toxic things, this is a new word, pretty much. But the indigenous didn't have words like that. It was just fresh. It was natural. That's what all it was. They would grow their own food and have everything themselves. So there was no sustainability because everything that they did cultivated the land, cultivated the animals, and everything had its own equilibrium. Everything had its own ecosystem. And when we look at what we are always doing, as Spirit says, as far back as man has been, there's always been this up and down sort of wave and this valley, peaks and valleys sort of growth where a civilization comes in, like let's say the Roman times, and their chief desire is to control a whole vast of people and then go to war and get more land and control those people and so on, only to fall. And it always works out that way, that we always seem to go back to the basics. If you look at anything in history, the Romans were one of them, and then there was a point there in the 1400s that we were trying to find new lands and so on, and there was all kinds of discoveries of lands, but it was always to do with what can we get out of the earth and just take it, not giving any resolve to what will sustain. And then when that falls, it always goes back to the basics. When the indigenous came in, even the last 200 years or 300 years, when we were called natives at the time. Now we call them, because it's politically correct, indigenous. But native means the people of the land. It means people that are in that vicinity were looking at their own land, and everything has a degree of respect. Now, there are some various tribes. I'm just going to name a few of the ancient tribes that looked at land and looked at people and energy in a little bit different way, but all have some commonality. And let's see if we can look at some of them. There's one in South America where they were the ancient tribes there, and their belief is that at their highest self, at the highest possible level you can be at, is where you don't worship God. You do not worship God, because that's really what religion has given us, right? It's given us and taught us that to worship this God. However, their belief isn't that. Their belief is when you get to your higher self, at your most highest point, you are God. And so is the rest of us. We are all gods on this earth. So we're earth gods in our own right. And it's very individualistic. Our soul actually has our godlike energy in each one of us, and it's all different, but it's still God. It's like just taking a little cup and dipping it into the ocean. You have the ocean in your cup. Right. The amount of it isn't the same as the ocean. It's still the ocean. It's the essence of the ocean. And that's the same thing. If you look at the chemical and the elements of the ocean, H2O, the salt, and all the elements of the ocean, it's in this cup. And that's your soul. So their belief was you are God. And the more that you can connect to this God that's within you, the more that you can give respect and the more of the powers that you'll have for this creative universe. That's their belief. Another belief is that in India, they have the belief that if you have tension and resistance in your body, somewhere in your body, there's some form of resistance, or in your mind, there's resistance to venture out, resistance to try something new, whatever the resistance is, there's resistance. Their belief is if you have that resistance in body or mind, then you will never need another enemy for the rest of your life, because you can do so much damage all by yourself. You slowly and diligently work against yourself and cut down yourself for as long as you live. So you don't need another enemy, because most of the damage that we cause is an inside job. Because when something is coming at us, like from another person or from something else, we can always defend about that. When we talk about this in different classes about the aura and about things about other people's, sending negative energy to us, we can combat that. There's a lot of ways we could combat that. But this is an inside job where you got a baseball bat and you're hitting yourself over the head. And spirit can't do much about that. There is no aura within an aura. Like it's this inside where you're not taking hold of who you are. And most people, if you stop them on the street, they have no idea who they are. They're just guessing of who they are. Another one is the Huron indigenous. There was a recent article published that I heard from a friend, and he says when their belief is they take care of everybody in their village, no matter, and especially the elderly. The elderly are sacred. They are considered wise. They have the essence of experience, and so anything that needs to get done, they'll ask an elder. It's a wisdom thing. And this is why in those tribes, the elders are still strong and vibrant, and they're doing things and they're happier because they feel they're of service. They feel that they're worth something. And what is the biggest complaint that in our society, elders have? Loneliness. Most of our elders are alone. I heard from somebody in our group recently that there are several elders that their kids literally live down the street within about a 10-minute walk, and they aren't visited maybe once or twice a year. And I'm not saying that's right or that's wrong. I mean, they have their decision for doing that, but this is what's happening, and they feel that they're just put into this home. There's nothing wrong with the home part of it. However, they're dying of loneliness inside first. And they feel they're not of use. They don't want to bother you. They don't want to, because they know you have a busy life. And I get that from my mom too. And she has her own place, and I call her every day. And she still, sometimes I'll hear that she's taking heavy things from the grocery store, taking it home, and then she hurts her arm or something. And I said, oh, I could have done that for you, Mom. Oh, I didn't want to bother you. I know you're a busy man, and they don't want to they don't want to bother you. But it's our joy to help our family, in some ways, and you gotta let them. But the Huron indigenous, they are shocked when they hear that our elderly is just in a home that way, or we're basically on our own. They are shocked. They just like it's just like saying we have two heads. It's just like, there's no way, because with our society, that's never done. even and it's not like, helping an old lady across the street. In their society, they help them across the street and making sure they get home safe. They walk them right to their door. We don't do that. I'm not saying that's what we need to do, but it's a different belief, isn't it? The Japanese, they have another ancient ways, and I'm going to read you some of the different ways that they have. They have 6 ways in their society that overcame uncertainty, inactivity, and laziness. I mean, that's one of the biggest culprits for doing things, right? I'm not sure what I should do. So there's inactivity. I don't know what to do. So what do you do? So they have 6 different ways in their culture that they use. One is called ikagi. And this means to discover the purpose of your life before you start. And this is not done when you're 40 or 50. This is done when you're still in your elementary school years. What is your purpose in life? Find something that makes you wake up each day because your purpose fuels you. If you know that what you're doing is so important and it's part of your purpose, then there is no laziness, there's no inactivity, and you don't get tired. When was the last time you loved something? Like if you loved cooking, and then you'll spend like hours in the kitchen, and some people will say, well, I'll just throw a pizza in the oven. What are you doing 4 or 5 hours in the kitchen? That's ridiculous, spending that much time on spaghetti sauce. What on earth, right? And so, but to them, it's a joy because they want that smell throughout the house. In this one Italian lady's words, she says, every time I cook, I make love to my food. So it's that passion. A second is called Kaizen. Kaizen is what they do. They focus on small improvement each day instead of trying to do everything all at once. Now, how many times do we do this? We want to do something. We figure, okay, let's just get it done. So let's say something basic like working out. You haven't worked out for 5 years, and now we're going to get back into it. You got your running shoes, you got your track pants, and now we're going to run 10K. That's what we tend to do because we figured we're so behind and we really want to get into shape that we hurt ourselves. We do it a little bit. And all this belief is, Kaizen, is to say, well, let's just do 1 kilometer and see how we feel. And then we do 1.5 kilometers. And then you eventually have gradual small improvements to get to where you want to get to. That also applies to healing. I was talking to a healer a while back, and their initial intention when they started getting clients was when a client came in, they had such a vast knowledge and all these tools of how to heal a person, and they want to do it all in 1 session, and that doesn't work because there's only so much that a person's energy and aura can withstand before the rest is gone. I mean, if your body can only process, let's say, 100 grams of vitamin C, right? 100 grams of vitamin C, if that's all your body can do, why are you putting in 1,000? The 900 is being peed out. That's really what's happening because there's no way it can absorb it. It's got to process it, so it just dumps it out. So in that belief, their belief is let's just do small little improvements. And they use that in martial arts and dancing. And that's why they're so good in so many arts, because they start them off small with small little improvements. And every time they're doing a little improvement, they make a note. Oh yeah, I went a little further, went a little further, went a little further. Okay. Another one is, it's called Promado technique, the Promado technique. And it's called work for 25 minutes without distraction. So you sit down to a project and you don't get distracted. You turn off your phone, you turn off all your stuff, and you work on your project for 25 minutes. Then you take a 5-minute break and you time it. After 5 minutes, then you work for another 25 minutes or another 5-minute break, and you keep repeating that. Their belief, and this has been proven, is that you get more done in less time rather than working 6 hours all at once. Okay. Another one in their culture is called harahachi. And this is called don't stuff yourself full of food. Go until you are, or feed until you are 80% full, then stop eating. It'll give you more energy. So just when, I mean, in an all-you-can-eat smorgasbord, it's hard to do that when you can go back three times, right? And sometimes it's just boasted that way. But really, they're saying as soon as you feel yourself getting a little bit full, you can stop right there. Even though you can take more, the process is better. You know, with the 80-20 rule, the 20% of the void, that's where the energy is because now there's room for the body to have that turn into better energy. Number five is shokin. And this is the approach every task. Their belief is approach every single task that you want like a beginner, like you've never done it before. That your curiosity and your wonderment is always like you've been doing it for the first time. Everything is wonderment. So if you've been playing golf for years, go to the golf course and be absolutely infatuated about that ball, about how it can hit, and just so curious and you're so present, so involved with the sport, you'll be better at it. But what do most people do? Or what do, well, I can't say most because that would be judging, but a lot of people, they'll go there and it's mostly a stress reliever. This is why a lot of the bags and the golf clubs end up in the lake because they swing and it goes way off to one side into the, oh, I did this better than that. And they hit it again and they get all frustrated. It's supposed to be an anti-stress game. And yet, you know, there's so much pressure in doing this because you're looking at the last time or maybe the best time you ever played golf and you figured every day is going to be like that. Every day is going to be awesome. And it isn't. We can only give our best today. Do your best today because your best will change. My best tomorrow may be half as much as what I'll do today, but it's okay because I did my best. And then there'll be days that'll be double what I did today. Then that will be my best. But don't get so hooked up on the performance of how the day ended. Always stay with the wonderment of whatever it is that you're doing so that as if you're doing it for the first time. The last one, number 6, it's called wabi-sabi. Embrace every imperfection in your life instead of stressing over the little details. It is better to act on something than to wait for perfection to come to you. I guess what they're saying is it's better to be imperfect than a blank piece of paper. Just put something down, just get something going. And I'm a lot like that when I start a project. When I start something, I get right involved with it, and I don't care if it looks sexy or not. I'm sort of the guy that makes the hole. I'm sort of like the bulldozer. I get into a project, and I just make the hole. Afterwards, I'll look at it and say, oh yeah, okay, it's a little bit off. Then I could sort of square it up and make it more, more in order after. But just get it going. Don't be so hooked up with perfection. Something done is still better than trying to make it perfect. The other one is now the Asian and Russian belief for a woman. I thought this was amazing. I had to write this down. So I'm going to read this to you. This goes back many centuries in old scripts, and what it says is regarding women, the capacity for a woman to feel unlimited, for her to feel is unlimited and infinite. It's so outside the realms of what a man can even understand, mainly because a woman has a womb, which means that she is literally connected to the void. She has the portal into the infinite from which souls come from. There is a connection to that, which means that she has one part of her in death beyond time and space always that men don't. They just don't. They don't have that ability. In this profound connection to the infinite, women life not only have the potential to create life, but also a deep understanding of the flow of emotions. They are the keepers of secrets and whispers of the cosmos, the bearers of wisdom forged in fires of existence. It's as if the universe chose them to be the messengers of our time, granting them the gifts of empathy and intuition that transcends mere mortal understanding. A woman's heart, a compass guided by the stars themselves, navigating the complex terrain of human emotion, where you stand in the awe of a woman's emotional depth. Remember, that's a testament to her uniqueness and connection to the cosmos, a connection that enriches the tapestry of human experience in ways we can only marvel at. Isn't that amazing? I've never heard that kind of description of a woman. And just to sort of, I'm just going to tag on this just for a moment. One of the things that are happening in our society, Spirit is saying, is because in another life, and this doesn't apply to all souls, but in another life where they were a man, and they know this importance, they know this connection, they come in as a woman on purpose because they want to feel those emotions, they want to do those things. But because they were always, let's say, many, many lives, they were men, they feel that they should be a man. And this is one of the ideologies that and the struggles that many of them are going through, is that they come in as a woman and they figure it came in wrong, and they didn't. They came in because they knew they were a man in another life, but wanted to experience the life end of it and the emotional end of it that men cannot understand as much. Okay? So when they feel that they should have been a man, many of our controlling people will tell them that, yeah, you should have been a man, and just to change it. And that's the confusion in many of the instances. So I don't want to get too much into ideologies, but just to show that we come in exactly the way we had to be. And if you didn't, then ask that question: why did I come in as a woman? I mean, there's so many advantages of being a man, but there's so many advantages of being a woman as well. But each has its own attributes. Each has its own very high benefit, and it's part of how your soul grows. Okay. In India, there was an interesting one that I read. It says in India there are millions of gods. There's a god of water, god of plates, god of dishes. There's the god of chairs, god of highways, god of grass. Pretty much everything that is surrounding you, the wind, the air, everything is a god. And the premise for all of this is that everywhere that we are, everywhere that we look, we want to treat people, because they are a god as well, and things with respect and honor. Because if you know something that is facing you is a form of a god, you should treat it with more respect. But the reality is that's not what's happening. The reality is that we don't treat people with the highest respect as a race. I mean, yes, there are many people that do, but on a lot of different instances, they don't. They have a selected few that wants to control spirit within people and get them to learn or taught or reprogram them so they are thinking and wanting something else rather than spirit, when whatever that is. Okay. In our own history, it's been discovered that we have forced our indigenous people to live our own way and to get away from their ancient ways, ancient life. And religion was forced upon them. There was a diary that was published, I believe it was in the early 90s, and I just connected to this recently, and the book is called The Diary of Jesus Christ. and it's by Bill Kane. And what he does is he goes through the book, and I just give you a paraphrase it. He goes through the book wondering, who was this man that was named Jesus? If this person did exist, and he's not saying that he did or it didn't, or he was not doing that, but he's saying, why is it that so many emperors, so many armies feared this man? And that's really the way what it came down to, because he led thousands upon thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, and they followed him, and they wondered why. Why on earth would they want to get rid of such a man? And what it boiled down to was this: he had so much love, even at the end, before he died, he still prayed to God, saying, "Don't hurt these people; they know not what they do." Even then, he still had empathy and he still had love for those people. And how do you fake that? How do you make that up? There's no emotions other than love. Love was the biggest thing for this man. And what it boiled down to, in the opposite end, where the emperors was love is the enemy. If people have love in their hearts, they can't control you. Think about it. If you have love for your family, love for yourself, love for everything around you, if somebody wanted to change any of that, there's no way. But if the love is not as strong and you're willing to compromise, you're willing to deal a little bit, then those are ways in which compromise can eventually turn into something that you never knew even existed. Okay? But in this one part of it, he goes on to say that in the word of the church, and in that time, and we've already seen some of the church houses that where they're finding graves and so on, is that we wanted to beat the Indian out of the child, and as bad as that could be. The whole idea is they wanted them to forget their culture and abandon their ancient ways. Why? Why abandon something old that's been working for thousands and thousands and thousands of years? They wanted to abandon it because we can't control people that are connected to something else. They got to be connected to us. So many people are connected to whatever that is told to them, and they don't justify it. It doesn't have to make sense. They just hear it and they think that that's it, rather than how do they feel? How do they feel about all these things? So it's the ancient ways that will always prevail. Another fact that I found about the indigenous is because the plants and animals that were on the brink of extinction over the last even 20 years were saved and kept by the various indigenous groups in this world. The seeds, all the stories, and all the things that they're still holding that, even though all the things that they have been through the year, decades and decades of treaties that were never honored, they're still willing to help us. And then tell you what, in World War II, they had a real problem at one point because all they could do was telegraph or do the Morse code to the ships and everything of when to strike and so on. But in doing that, they knew that the enemy could intercept those messages. So they had to put it in code, right? And any code that they would do, it wouldn't take long before the enemy would be able to decode it and now knows what they're doing and then combat it, and knew that when they wanted to strike, and it was always a failure. So what did they do? They went to the indigenous. They went to the Mohawk people and saying, look, we need your help. And this was at a time where they were like nothing. They were on reservations already. They were poorly treated. And they said, we need your help. And they said, absolutely. Because it's part of their culture not to judge. There is no forgiveness because they never judged. We just treated them so poorly, and then all of a sudden they became valuable because now they could put a Mohawk person on one end and one on the other end, and they could speak in their language, and the enemy could never figure it out, what the messages were. So they saved many, many hundreds of thousands of men and women on the battlefield because they couldn't crack the code. And that's because of our indigenous did that. When the war was over, they went back to whatever it is they were doing before. But in each instance, it is all about finding your ancient ways. You know, over the last 30 minutes, I've been sending ascended masters, chiefs, various elders to each one of you. Each one that is a bloodline of where you used to be. With some people, they've gone back 200 years. So you have a chief perhaps beside you, or you have some other ascended master or someone that was in your village that used to be in another life 500 or 1,000 years ago. Each one of you will have a different master beside you. In this meditation, I want you to connect to your ancient ways. And it doesn't matter how it comes in. If all of a sudden you get different ways of making, rolls or making buns or whatever it is to start that communication with this amazing spirit elder that is beside you. Some are from South America, some are from Europe, Asia, some are from Australia, some are from South America, the list just goes on. Some of you actually have more than one. So if you feel like there's like two or more, it's okay, because they all want to be there and be part of this experience for the next 15 minutes. I want you to connect to your bloodline and something that you represent, something sustainable of your past that wants you to continue and pass on these ancient ways to your kids and to those that you love. Okay, I want you to breathe in the color red, this beautiful fire engine red, and just have it go through your legs. It's mainly a root chakra color, yes, but I want your whole body to be this red color, and definitely at the soles of your feet where it connects to the ground. All right, it's this tribal, community-based color. It's all about renewal. It's all about coming back as strong as you ever have been, even though that society may have fallen. You might be the perennial that might be responsible for reigniting that culture again. Take a nice deep breath and let's see how that communication goes with you guys. Just let yourself go, and whatever comes to you, if you want to jot something down or make a mental note, whatever it is, anything that you get will be a real benefit here. We'll see you in about 15 minutes. slowly come back the way, try and remember what you saw, what you felt, what you sensed. The indigenous or the ancient warrior or the chief or whoever that was beside you when you felt that, what questions did you ask? Did you get any answers? Did you get any messages, even if it was pictures? Now, I didn't give you any instructions on how to connect or yeah, that's the meditation today, the YouTube link. We're also on a Getter. It's a because we've been suspended from Facebook because they wanted to silence me. I found out recently that a friend of mine also has been suspended from Facebook because they posted an article on non-toxic detergent, and they were kicked off. So they're starting to silence some of these people that are just saying, the ancient ways was always natural for the environment. It was always sustainable. We have to use that word so we feel better. But basically, anything in ancient times, anything indigenous, is sustainable. Otherwise, it wouldn't have lasted thousands of years. Never would have lasted. Our YouTube station is still on, so we're going to be posting the class later on there. And if we somehow get disconnected from YouTube, which probably if it happens, it is. We're also on Rumble, I think called a platform called Rumble. It's just like YouTube. It's just a free speech area. Okay. And I will post that actually as well. On Rumble, we are on Raising Your Spirits on Rumble. So just in case they silence me there on YouTube, don't be too surprised because they're doing that with everybody. We thought it would be people that are in the millions of followers, but they're starting with the small ones first because if I had like 24 hits or 24 people that liked that was it. But that's what they're getting. They're getting the small guys first, and then they're moving up. On Rumble, it is Raising Your Spirits. That's the sort of the code word to get in to find me there. Okay, so just in case we got disconnected from one, it's okay. They can't silence me. I'll just go somewhere else. And if you guys are okay following, all the better. The other thing is, if I could share what I got an ancestor European about 500 years ago, and I could not believe the way they were talking to me. It was just like, it was just like in awe that I've survived all the things that we had to survive. And if you look at your great 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 granddaughter or grandson, and they're still going strong, and they're kind of doing some of the things in your culture that you were doing, and they says, I can't believe he's still doing it. It's 500 years later, right? It's that kind of honor that you're holding on to these ancient ways and never let them go. If you're indigenous, if you have indigenous background or whatever it is, Inuit or there's the world is full of them. The Tektai from the Toltec, I'm sorry, from Mexico, whichever tribe it is, they are the ones that have love and respect in our society, and they want to silence them first. Okay. I hope this was a great connection to your past because that's exactly what the purpose of this was. Whether you're going to relay your message in voice as I am, or some people are into music like Rob, other people are doing more indigenous things and connecting people that way. Whichever it is, stay with the old ways. I mean, they're sometimes made fun of, but it's the old ways that has sustained itself. The old ways never used to call it sustaining yourself. It was just an old way of doing things, and it was sustainable. Now we have to say sustainable because all the other things that we're doing, now we have to think we have to be sustainable. That already suggests something, is that we're not sustainable if we have to say we're sustainable. Does that make sense? If we say we're sustainable, like we're not. But if we go back to what we used to do, I mean, you don't have to give up all the luxuries. I mean, you could probably still keep your washer and dryer. And some people will think we have to go back to, cleaning clothes on a rock. That's not what Spirit's saying. There are things that we could do that are ancient ways, just more modernly done. But we don't have to, if we respect the climate, respect other people, and respect nature, and with that in mind come up with something, we always will. It's just that it's cheaper to do it another way. Does that make sense? But look at all the money that we're pouring into sustainability. The government just spent, I don't know how many billions of dollars to get people to use more electric. Yet, 30, 40, 50 years ago, I remember very well we wanted to bring, electric buses back in, and they destroyed these in the 40s and 50s. They had electric buses everywhere. In Toronto, there was electric buses. And so it ran so cheap, it was like 10 cents a day to run a bus. And so because of the bus company and the tire company and the fuel company got together and they said, we're going to create a bus. And then they bought the rights to all of the electric buses and they dismantled them and they destroyed them. And now we're thinking, oh, we have to go back to that. Just okay. See, it's just because it's just cheaper. It's all about money, and who's going to make more money if we do something else? It doesn't mean it's going to be cheaper. It's just going to there's more money involved. But one thing I love about the Cree Indians or the Cree indigenous is one of their phrases is that it's only when we poison all our lakes and we can't fish. It's only when we can poison our air and we don't have any birds, and we only poison our land and the animals can't survive on it is when we realize that we can't eat money. All right. I hope this was helpful, guys, and I hope you can connect to your ancestors in another way. If you can do this at least 5 to 7 times over the next week, it's really going to strengthen your inner heritage. You are who you are, and there's a God inside of you that wants to come out. And so let it come out. You are a God. You are a form of an earth God. It's part of you. If you deny that, then there's not much spirit can do, because part of your soul is godlike energy. So you have to at least say that you're that, and then connect to the God that's in front of you, the God that's there. Yeah, Rob, you have a question?
I was just going to share a little bit very quickly. I know sometimes I can
Yeah,
get on a tangent.
yeah.
I
I've got
didn't
maybe about 2 minutes left. Yeah.
I didn't hear much. I didn't see much. I felt calm and relaxed though, so maybe I was being loved and respected by whatever energy was around me, like just kind of not like a spa moment, but like kind of like maybe I was just being loved. But then I wrote down some things because I remember you said something like try and take a mental note or paper and pen. So I grabbed paper and pen, and the first thing came out was beats for me. I haven't made my own music or made my own beats yet before. I've just been writing, and it's funny because before the call today, I reached out to a recording studio and said, "Can I intern at your recording studio to learn how to make beats like for free? Like I'll work for free, I'll mop the floor, you know?" And because I feel like making beats is kind of like ancestry, native-y, and the drum in there and hip hop, and I feel like learning how to make beats will make me a better writer. So I feel like that came out first for me. The second word came out natural, so maybe let the beat making be more natural and not about money. Like just have fun, and the money will
Yep.
come.
Yep.
And then I wrote down grow food. This is a challenge for me. because I've grown like little bits of food, like potatoes here and there in pots, and I'm like, okay, it's the end of it's harvest time, and we eat the potatoes, and then we're back to it's not like we stopped going to the grocery store, so it's like the money is still super important
That's right.
because to feed a family of four, like we need to go to the grocery store unless we had like a big field or we were
Yeah.
trading with other people's. So I'm
Yes.
assuming community and growing food, like I'm looking back, like I don't know how they did it without grocery stores. Like how did they eat? How did they eat till they were like, I guess 80% full? But how did they eat? Like they must have had a lot of food in reserve and stuff. I just could only imagine.
It's all about
Um,
May I go?
there's food there's food preservation. They knew how to do those. It was at that one point when they harvest that they canned and bottled everything, and you'd have a whole year's supply in a cellar. Cellars were big in those days. We had huge cellars in our old houses in the many centuries ago. We had those.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That inspires me to grow inside during the winter. Maybe we can get some indoor grow lights and keep them off at night kind of thing and on during the day. And there were two more things that came up super quick, kind of like work wise. I haven't done an event since 2016, like a charity event, and I'm feeling super pulled. And that kind of came as a fourth thing was like do it. It was like
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it kind of reminded me of you, like don't wait till it's perfect, just something done is better than nothing done. And then there was the last thing too, which kind of quote, I did a canine class online and something's telling me to redo it and make it better and make it more beautiful and just do it, and not try to like make it perfect. So yeah, I got some stuff, but it wasn't until I came out of it and took the pen to the paper. And these could have been things already sitting in my brain, slash I've already wanted to do, but it definitely, whatever spirit was with me is bringing them to the surface and saying, don't forget about these things, slash don't put them to the side. Don't hyper focus on only these things, but don't forget about these things, I think is what I'm getting.
right, right. Just in closing, Rob, I just wanted to mention, Spirit wanted to highlight, you talked about your beats. The beats are inside of you. Your quest is to get it out of you, because hundreds of years ago you had those beats, and it's your beats. And so all you need to do, it's not something that has to come in, it's in. It has to come out. Okay? So it is in reverse. The beats are part of you. So if you ask that spirit to play you your beat, and then just have some instrument or some way that you could write it down or whatever, then you could say whatever it is, and then it'll just come out, and then it'll just flow, and just let it come out.
It's
Okay?
funny because you mentioned resistance and that
Yeah,
your
that's
biggest
it.
use, and my
Yep.
resistance is like computer programs. And I think beat making nowadays is mostly done using a computer program, and I'm like, that looks scary.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I know it's just little bit by little bit, like also you were mentioning with the Japanese, little bit by little bit, and like
yeah,
building on that. Thank
exactly.
you.
Okay, guys, I have to go. Okay, I got an appointment to go to, so I will see you next week. I hope this was of value. So love you all, everybody, and we'll see you next week. Okay,
Thanks,
bye.
Cody. Bye.